Hello, Church of the Front Range. Jonathan Klein here, excited to dive into the first part, the Gospel of Matthew, with each of you today. But before we do that, two elements of note to store in your minds as you read through Matthew this week and next. First, who Jesus is. Matthew uses several names to identify Jesus. A few of those are teacher, king, Messiah, Son of David, Son of God, wisdom, incarnate, and Lord, to name a few. Let these names sink into your heart. Jesus is. The second, church discipleship. Specifically pay attention to the emphasis on humility and forgiveness as we read this week and next. Now let's dive in to the passage today, the first four chapters. Most of us, myself included, skim through the lineage of Christ, the first 17 verses of chapter 1, but it serves an important function. It reveals who fulfills a few of God's promises to biblical figures centuries earlier. The first promise this lineage connects with is the Son of David, hearkening back to God telling David that his house, David's house, and David's kingdom shall endure before God forever. David's throne shall be established forever. That's 2 Samuel 7:16. The very first verse of the Gospel of Matthew establishes that Jesus is the fulfillment of the many Old Testament prophecies that spoke of the Messiah being the son of David, or in other words, from David's line. Second promise found in the same verse is Jesus being connected to Abraham. If you remember, God told Abraham that in him, Abraham, all the families of the earth will be blessed. That's Genesis 12:3. Of course, Jesus is the one through whom all nations are blessed. The promise made to Abraham was fulfilled through Jesus, the son from his lineage. Now, take a moment and reflect on what we learned from the first 17 verses. The connectivity from Abraham to Jesus is profound. Abraham, the father of God's chosen people, to David, the start of the kingly line of God's chosen people, and culminating in Jesus, the fulfillment of God's promises and his plan to save the world from utter destruction. What we see is God's plans are masterful, his execution is flawless, and his impact is immeasurable. And as I reflect on God's masterful plans, the flawless execution, the immeasurable impact, I am struck by the perfect place God has provided to Church of the Front Range for his purposes. As I've walked through the new building this week and I've seen each space, the offices, the kids' spaces, the student space, the future worship center, I see a masterful plan, 7 months in the making, being flawlessly executed before our very eyes, prepared in advance for immeasurable impact for the expansion of his kingdom, all for his name and his fame to spread. He is so good. So let us prayerfully reflect on this truth, church. His plans are good because he is good. They are also masterfully designed, executed flawlessly, and impact more than we can imagine. And all we have to do is, as we watch this plan unfold in our lives, is to trust him at his word. We follow his plan faithfully, and we walk alongside him in full obedience and dependence. I have personally watched this church over the last 7 months do just this, and the results, friends, speak for themselves, his palpable presence and his constant favor. So, will we trust him at his word? Will we faithfully go wherever he sends us, do whatever he tells us, and be ready whenever he calls out to us? And will we walk in obedience to all his ways? The results of doing so will speak for themselves. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, friends.